welcome back to the Morning Juice Pod. I'm your host, Juice. With us today from North Texas, we got Miranda, who's going to come on here and tell us her story and about inspiration and hope. And let's welcome on in. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was telling Brian I was looking at your TikToks today, and just so I could try to get some familiarity with you, since he's the one that reached out to you. And I'm real impressed with how your journey's going so far. So I wanted to tell you that first and foremost.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank
And
you.
for the audience, tell us how far you've come in sobriety. So how far you're in recovery so far?
Like time wise,
Yeah,
so I my sober date is April 7th, so I'm like almost 4 months sober today.
awesome, awesome. How you
Yeah.
feel?
Good. I feel really good. The beginning was really hard. Um, but I've said this on my TikTok a lot. Like I show up when I'm angry, I show up when I'm sad, I show up when I'm lonely, I show up when I'm tired because I don't have another choice other than to show up.
Right. I mean, I watched like. Go ahead and plug your TikTok while we're on here. Like, go ahead and get it plugged up because, like, you have an inspirational story on your TikTok.
Thank you. My TikTok is softcore sober girly. And I don't even really know what made me start it. I guess I started my TikTok back in February when I was still using, and I tried to post like gym content. I was trying to find some sort of outlet because I was so miserable and I was so depressed, and like it never really went anywhere. And then I just posted a video a couple days after I got sober. Actually, it was the day I was going to detox. I posted a TikTok and I looked like shit. I looked like I'd been ran over. I was like, my sober date's 4/7. This may be my 50th try, but I'm never gonna give up. And it just like took off, and it's been like uphill from there. And it like I said earlier before we started recording, I try to show like the realest parts, especially my feelings, because like it's not just because we get sober like the bad shit stops happening. Really, if anything, it gets worse because then you don't have a coping or a numbing mechanism anymore, and everything's
Absolutely.
like heightened. So that's why I say like I show up when I'm angry, I show up when I'm tired, I show up when I'm sad, I show all of that because the feelings fade. You know what I mean? But I would rather push through that than go back to the life I was living for sure.
Absolutely. So let's dive into your story a little bit. So tell us just tell us your story. Tell us about what age you started using, and just take us to where you are in the present, and then we'll dive in with some questions and stuff.
Okay. So I grew up really on the middle in the middle of nowhere. My grandparents owned a cattle ranch, so I spent majority of my time there, like all my free time. My dad traveled a lot, so he was gone majority of the time. And I have two older brothers, and so it was my mom really by herself. And I think she struggled a lot with my dad being gone, like emotionally, which is fair and it's valid. Um, but I never had an outlet for my feelings. And I'm bipolar. I think I have been bipolar since birth, honestly. Like I remember being a very emotionally unstable kid. And I'm really the only one in my family that struggles that bad. My mom's dad is an alcoholic, her mother was an opiate addict, and so I have the addiction lineage or whatever.
Right.
But as far as my immediate family unit, we're all shovers. Everything gets shoved down. You don't talk about your feelings. Feelings are
Right.
bad. I was reprimanded, for expressing too much negative emotion, and so I just learned to shut that off. And so I think I started smoking weed around like 13 years old. And I was like, finally, like the moment in that book that says, like, I had arrived, like
Right.
that was it for me. Like,
And it cleared your head a little bit too, didn't it?
yes. Like, and then I found alcohol around 15, 16, and I looked forward to any moment that I could drink. And I was not really much of a social drinker, even from the jump. I would go to parties because I wanted to black out, and I would drink as much as I could, as fast as I could, into oblivion, because I just wanted everything to shut down. And by the time I was 17 years old, I was drinking every single day, getting blackout drunk every single day. I had a really bad event happen with my mom around 18 years old, and I already felt like no one loved me and no one cared about me. And at that point in my life, no one had ever betrayed me like that, let alone like my own mom. And
Right.
so I kind of just said F it all. And I just went like balls to the walls. It's when I started using hard drugs, anything and everything I could get my hands on. I started working at a doctor's office, so I had immediate access to all sorts of pills. Um, and I rode that out for as long as I could. I don't really remember much from that time, honestly. I just I didn't breathe a sober breath. I wasn't like a weekend warrior or a binge drinker. Like it was all of it, all the time, all at once, as much as I could possibly take. Which, granted, I also was in college. I don't know how, but I was making really, really good grades. It had to have been the stimulants. But um I went to
That's
rehab
actually
the first.
shocking.
Yeah, I made the president's list every semester I was there until I went straight alcohol, and then I was flunking courses like left and right. The
Right.
stimulants I could manage school, but not just straight alcohol. And really, I guess it was because the alcohol was cheaper and gave me the desired effect I wanted.
Right.
It like just blotted out my consciousness. And I got into a really bad relationship with someone who was selling me drugs, and it got to a point where he left me for dead in a hotel room in Dallas. And I made it through that.
How,
Um
how old was you when that happened?
I was 20. I was 20, and so I called a friend with the hotel phone cuz he had stolen my wallet, my car, my phone, everything. And my friend took me to the emergency room. Um and the police showed up. It was this whole thing, and then I found out I was pregnant. I found out I was almost 4 months pregnant, and I ended up having an abortion with the last bit of money I had. And I stayed with that friend until they kicked me out because I was literally losing my mind, going crazy. And it's so funny because while I was on my amends, I never talked to that friend again. While I was on my amends, he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I've been watching your journey. Like, I'm so proud of you, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, it's crazy because I've been praying to God, like, if I owe anyone amends, put them in my path, you know?
Oh, that's amazing.
It was incredible, yeah. And we went and got coffee, and, like, who knows, 7 years later, he's also worked a program and he has sponsees. Like, it's just insane how God works, you know? But if
Absolutely.
that relationship would have been introduced at any other time in my life, I would have owed, like, so many more amends, you know? So I show up at my family's house. I'm in like the worst condition possible. And so their solution was to just lock me in a bedroom. So I had no access to anything. I found a really old iPod in my room, and I was having friends like drop liquor off in the middle of the night. But I was a very violent, violent drunk. Like when I say rage, I mean like attacking people physically, verbally in the worst ways possible. Um and so my mom took me to a psychiatrist because I was having such bad nightmares. I would just wake up screaming. And they prescribed me Ambien.
Mm.
And that was the first time I ever tried to kill myself. First and
So,
only time I genuinely wanted to die.
like,
It was right.
was it like the side effect from the Ambien? Because I mean, Ambien has terrible side effects.
Well, actually, I didn't know. I don't know because it was the day I got the prescription.
Okay.
So I got really drunk and I took all of them, and then I woke up in the ICU. And so I took my first visit to the psych ward, and that was a awful experience because really at this point in my life, all I wanted was someone to like hug me and listen to me. But I didn't feel safe with anyone. There was nowhere where I felt safe. My parents didn't know about anything that went on. It was kind of just like, okay, you're here now. Shut up. Don't talk about it. Like, we don't want to know. We don't want to hear about it. Just stay in your room. And so that's what I did. And I journaled and journaled and journaled and journaled. I wrote all day long. And I ended up getting a job October of 2018. And my parents had taken my keys from me, so I was Ubering everywhere. And at this time, I'm still underage. And my boss just so happens to be in the program. And so she's like taking me to AA with her, and I'm getting like fucked up in the bathroom, drinking Four Locos, like blacking out. She's having to drive me home, like just bad
Right.
situation. Like bringing alcohol in my lunchbox at work, and she's throwing it in the dumpster, and I'm dumpster diving on my lunch break. And I'm working at like a chiropractor office. I've always had really good jobs somehow. But
She looks outside and you're like dumpster diving,
yeah,
throwing
yeah,
boxes around and stuff.
yeah. And so my violence continued to get worse and worse until the cops were called for the last time, and they told me I was not allowed to go back in my parents' house. So a friend came and got me, and I'm like throwing up blood, drinking tequila, throwing up blood, drinking tequila, drain my bank account for them to go buy drugs, you know? And a week later, I show up to work, and my boss is like, you cannot be here. Like, you got to go." And I
Wow.
remember laying on the floor of her office, sobbing into the carpet and being like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want this. And I went to rehab for the first time. And I think it was good, but I was nowhere ready to stop just because I couldn't be honest about anything that had happened to me, any of my emotions. I couldn't even identify my emotions. Like if you were to ask me what are you feeling, I couldn't give you one word.
Right.
And so I had just like become really like a shell of a person. And so for like I was 21 by the time I got out of rehab. For like the next 3 years, it was kind of like rehab, relapse, or like rehab, sober living, relapse. My parents sent me back to rehab, sober living, relapse. My parents sent me back to rehab. And we just did that endless cycle. And really, I don't think my parents even wanted to do what they were doing, but they didn't want me to die. And so they didn't know what else to do other than to send me to rehab.
Right.
And so, um, the last time I lived in sober living before this, I moved out and I had met someone literally on eHarmony and gotten engaged to them in like a couple months. I'm not gonna lie. And I just wanted out of my situation. And like that was my ticket out, right? Like that was my bus pass out
You're
of
like,
this
let's
situation.
go.
So I'm the
eHarmony, I'm
house
in
manager of
love.
a yeah. And he lived in like a Navy base in Virginia Beach. Okay. So like I was like committed to it. The dress, the cake, the officiant, it's all booked. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I move out of my sober living and I'm going to stay with my parents for a week before he comes down here with this U-Haul. And I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I texted him and I was like, I can't do this. And I just blocked him on everything. Never talked to him again until I made amends to him. And so I swore that once I got my own apartment and I was on my own 2 feet that I was never going to step foot in a meeting again. You couldn't drag me there. If it was between life or death, I was not going. And
Right.
so I stayed on my own until June of 2023. And it had gotten so bad, I was drinking upward of 2.5 handles of liquor a day. And I blacked out for like over a month. I have no idea how I got the alcohol. I didn't have a car, I didn't have any money. I have no idea how I got any of it. There was probably like 200 handles in my apartment just scattered around. Um, and I woke up I came to from the blackout and I'm like, what day is it? Like, what century is it? Basically, I
Right.
had no idea. I had cuts and just busted up. And I stayed drunk for like 3 days after that. But there was this voice in my head that was like, if you drink, you are going to die. Like, because I still had like half a handle left. And it was like, if you drink, like that's it for you. Like it's game over. And maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't have. But anyways, I didn't. I didn't drink. And then like 3 days in, I start getting like really sick. And I hallucinated the worst hallucinations I've ever had in my life. Because I had before, but nothing to this extent. Like it
Right.
was bad. And like just these convulsions and at this point I hadn't talked to my family in months. I didn't know at the time. My mom told me much later, but my parents were taking turns coming by my apartment and like looking in the window just to make sure I'd moved positions because they were sure that I was just going to die in there.
Wow.
And I there had been a woman coming to my apartment 12 stepping me. and trying to get me sober, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And so I called her and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, baby, I think you need inpatient. And so that's what I did. A couple days later, I was on a flight to Hannah's house in South Padre. I cannot recommend it enough. It is the only place that ever did anything for me. It is straight 12-step base. It's 12-step all day long from the moment you wake up till the time you go to bed. There's no art therapy, there's no music therapy, whatever. It's just
Oh
big book, big
wow.
book, big book, big book, big book. And you work all the steps while you're there because they have people who are in recovery that work there, and they act as your sponsor while you're there, and you do everything but make amends pretty much, but they make you write them all out and everything. So whenever I got out, and still when I got down there, I called that lady and I was like, F you, how dare you send me to this
Right.
treatment center? You know I hate the steps, like you're so rude, but you're, and she was like, first of all, you're not gonna talk to me like that, and hung up on me. And I was like, okay. No one had ever set a boundary with me
Right.
before.
Nobody
And
ever
that was
done
her
that to you
setting a
before.
boundary with me. Yeah. Everybody's usually just like, oh, okay, Miranda, let's just work around her rage because, you know. And so she ended up being my sponsor for a long time.
That's
I
awesome.
actually just stopped working with her this time around, one because of distance and she thought I needed a new experience. But I mean, I was riding that pink cloud when I got out of rehab, like hard. I was like
Right.
all gung ho recovery. And then I met a dude and he became my higher power. And I have struggled a lot in my life with interpersonal relationships since my very first boyfriend. I hated my dad. I don't anymore. We're on amazing terms, just let me clarify, but I hated my dad for not being there.
Right.
And I searched for my dad in every possible man I could and never found him, obviously. And I didn't
Right.
realize what was going on until I did heal the relationship with my dad. But I'm searching for this unconditional love. And it did not work out. He was my entire everything. And so when I actually initiated the breakup because I wanted to work the 12 steps of codependency, and it was just too hard, like being with him, like, and being like my mind going crazy all the time. And so
Right.
I initiated the breakup, and then he actually followed through with it. And I was like, oh, wait, I don't want this anymore, blah, blah. And I went on this like downward spiral for like the next 6 months until I finally relapsed. I relapsed October of 2024. And I went to rehab. It was like summer camp. I was just like flirting with people and like just swimming in the lake and complaining and, just being a menace to people, really.
Right.
And then whenever I got out of that treatment center, I went to Austin. I was probably sober for like 2 weeks, maybe like a month, and I contracted sepsis and almost died actually. And they gave me oxy in the hospital and morphine, and because my organs were literally shutting down. It was the worst pain I've ever been
Right.
in. And so I was in the hospital for a little while, and I just felt so alone. I got so depressed. And I drank as soon as I got out. And so from like the middle of November, December, up until April, I was using. I started smoking weed. I drank like a few times, and then I just started buying those weed pens from the gas station.
Right.
And then I'm in sober living. And so all these lies are just like building up around me. And it's like constant suffocation. Like I can't look anybody in the eye. I'm so ashamed of myself. And so I manipulate my parents, and they come down and get me from Austin, and I end up staying with them. I just manipulated the heck out of them. And so then I start smoking actual weed. I'm drinking on and off. Like my dad's like throwing me out because I'm getting blackout drunk. And so I'm sober for like 3 days until I'm just like so restless, irritable, and discontent that my skin is crawling.
Right.
And so the guy that left me for dead in that hotel room hit me up on Instagram, and he was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, he doesn't know who I am. And so I messaged back and he FaceTimes me, and he's like, oh, did you ever get off that shit? Because we were doing like really hard drugs together. And I was like, oh, he knows who I am. Okay. Um, and his brother and him made music, and his brother died in December in a hit and run car accident this last year. I didn't know that, but so one of my favorite rappers, literally since like 15 years old, had made music with his brother. And they were playing these shows like in tribute of him or whatever, and he invited me down there. So I was like, oh my God, this is like my moment. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I go down there and I end up doing a bunch of blow, and then I'm like in love, right, with this rapper because whenever you put the two most broken people in a room together and they're like magnets, that's what
Right.
happened. That's what happened. And so I turned my phone off, like no one knows where I'm at. Everyone's trying to get a hold of me. Like people are trying to track me down. It was actually my old sponsor who was stalking my Instagram and was like, "This is where she is. I know this is where she is." And it was so true. And so, um, whenever I came back, my dad was like, "You can't stay here. You got to go. You literally have to leave." And I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go. And there was no yelling, there was no screaming, there was no "I'm disappointed." My dad was just sobbing in front of me. And he was like, "Baby, I love you so much." It's going to make me cry. But I don't know what to do. And I was like, "Dad, I
Usually
don't
what
know
happens with
either."
parents, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and he was like, "I don't want you to leave, but I can't let you stay here." And so he's like trying to pack me food and stuff because at this point I'm like, "Fuck, I really have to live in my car." Like after all this, like I'm back in my car. And I had hit up someone from Oklahoma and I was like manipulated them and was like, "Oh, I miss you. I love you, blah 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 blah." And I went up there and things got really, really, really bad in the span of 12 hours. And um, so it was in this camper, and the last thing I remember was it was like 4 in the morning. It was pouring down rain, and I was standing there, and I was like trying to get my balance because the door was open, and he just kicked me down those metal stairs. And I had some liquor left in my car, and I FaceTimed my dad, and I was like, "Dad, I'm gonna drink this liquor, and I'm gonna drive off this bridge, coming back into Texas." And that's my plan. And he was like, "Just stay where you're at, share your location with me, like I'll come get you. Just don't drive anywhere." And I was like, "No, like I'll share my location with you, but I'm still gone. Like I
Right.
just want you to know I love you." And then all I could think about while I probably stayed I blacked out probably like 5 minutes later, but all I could think about, I have this sweet baby niece, like now I have two, but she's just the most precious, like little angel. And I was like, she's never even gonna know anything, nothing. She's gonna see a picture of me and just like maybe she'll wonder. And it like broke my heart. I just remember crying and crying, and somehow by the grace of God, I made it to my parents' house, which was like 2 hours away. I have no idea how I made it there, like at all, because it's not a road that I'm familiar with. It's not like, oh, I'm just on autopilot.
Right.
And so they took me to the hospital, and I agreed to go to detox, and I was like, "I'm not staying sober. Like, I'll play this out for as long as I can until I figure out somewhere to go, but I'm not doing this sober thing." And I got down to detox, and I wanted to use the entire time I was there. I remember literally like scratching my face because the cravings were so, or not even the cravings, because it was the mental obsession, really. Um, but I just kept going, and I came to this sober living. It is literally the strictest program in DFW. You cannot find a stricter women's sober living in DFW. But I knew that coming in. I really did. I knew that coming in. And I needed the accountability. I needed someone to show me the way. I was so lost and so confused, but I knew like day one of being here, like I have to change everything, like literally everything. I have to change every single aspect of my life right now. And I know I can't do it all at once. It's a gradual process.
Right.
But I was like, there's not a damn thing I'm not willing to do. If someone asks me to jump, I'm saying how high. You know what I mean? Every single time, whether I want to, whether I feel like it, whether I'm in the mood, it doesn't matter. I'm doing it. And that's exactly what I did. And I got here on a Friday. My roommates took me to a meeting on a Saturday. I don't even know why, but I asked this little bitty, I'm 5'9", like I'm a tall girl. I asked this little bitty, like 5 foot nothing, 21-year old, I'm 27, to be my sponsor. I knew nothing about her, never heard her share. I don't even know why I asked her. I was just really manic, honestly. But it's been the most amazing experience. There's not one thing that I can't tell her. There's not one thing that I've done in sobriety that she hasn't already done. And the most important thing to me is she directs me back to the program and to God. It's never like, I think this or you should or whatever.
Right.
It's what is have you got with God about this before you called me? No. Okay, click. Call me back. And it's like I needed that. I've never had a relationship with God. I've thought I had, but I haven't, not until this experience, because men have always been my higher power. And like I said earlier, like little by slowly, I've been healing the relationship with my dad. And I no longer act out in those ways because, like, I have no desire to. And I do have other afflictions that I like struggle with sometimes, that being one of them. But this time around, I don't know. It's just like I had that psychic change, and I believed it happened for other people, but I was like the terminally unique one that it was never going to happen for
Right. Right.
until it happened. And like the best way I can describe God in my life right now is the promises and miracles are happening in my life, and I have no idea how. Because
Yes.
no, not me. Like
I
the
mean,
only thing I know is destruction, depression, isolation, and misery, all left to my
yes.
own accord. And that's it. And like there's no way I wake up just like ready for the day most days. And like ready to help other people. Like that's insane.
This is awesome, man. Like to see your journey. I mean, you were like, I don't know. I can't even quit smiling because of your story. Like, I'm so proud of you. But when you finally got that God moment, though, like, let's talk about that a little bit, because that's the part of recovery that I feel like don't get talked about enough, and I feel like that's a lot between the God moments and working a little bit on the mental health. I feel like that's the two areas where like people don't work, and it's their biggest chances of relapse. Because,
Right.
like for me, I went to treatment. I went to the psych ward and treatment twice in the same year, but it took the second time being in treatment that I had my God moment,
Right.
and then it was like my whole program got easy after that.
Oh yeah. Dude, with God it's so much easier. And I want to preface, like, I have been from one extreme to the other. I was raised Southern Baptist. My mom was my Sunday school teacher. And I grew up in like a small country town. So the girls were like boots and belt buckles and cowgirl boots, And I've
Right.
never been that. I'm Vans and a skateboard and, Led Zeppelin. And
There we
so
go.
I got like extremely alienated and rejected at the church I was at. And I even youth pastored my nanny's kids, and like I was real close with them, but I was the kid who questioned everything, and like you don't do that at church. You don't ask
Right.
those
Right.
questions. You just do it. And I wanted to know why. And I never felt the presence of God ever. I tried and I tried. And then when I found drugs and alcohol, that was my higher power. Like
Right.
that was all I needed. That was everything I could ever want. It was everything that I get from God now, honestly.
Absolutely. Like I'm with you 100% on that. Because like for me, it's like everybody's like, when you don't have a relationship with God, everybody's like, oh, you just got to listen. And I'm like, I've been listening for 40 something years and I ain't
Right.
heard shit,
Right.
and then I'm 2 years in recovery, and it's like, I can get up in the morning and it's like my intuition, everybody calls it your intuition. And
Yeah.
I've learned that like a lot of times my intuition is really God trying to keep me out of trouble. Like if
Right.
my brain wants to make a bad decision, my intuition's like, no, boy, you better not do that.
Right. Right. That pause is where God comes in. If I get an intuitive thought, even if it's a thought to pause, like that is God, because I
Yeah.
will run my mouth. I love confrontation. Like, so, but whenever I grew, like, got into adulthood, the drug dealer that I was talking about that I dated, we did a lot of like satanic stuff together. So I'm like doing rituals and animal sacrifices. I have a bunch of 666 tattoos, like I was searching for something. I was
Some sort
searching
of
for it in
power.
the Baptist church, and I was searching for it in Satanism. I was searching for it in crystals. I was endlessly searching for something outside of myself, but I didn't realize at the time, but I have been. I've been searching all along, you know what I mean? And this time around, I was like, I don't even believe this is going to work, but I'll freaking do it. And I
Yes.
just kept doing it. But the thing is, like, I put effort into it. It's not like oh, the 5 minute drive to work or 5 minute drive to the no. My ass gets up at 4 a.m. because the first hour of my day, 45 minutes to an hour of my day is prayer and meditation. Before I even make my bed in the morning, like the first thing I do when I open my eyes, my knees hit the freaking ground because I am not in control. I'm completely powerless. Like I quite literally get on my knees and I lift up my hands like this and I'm like, whatever you want, God. Like, and if I'm doing the wrong thing, like I need you to make it blatantly clear where I cannot ignore it. Like show
Absolutely.
me. And sometimes I feel real connected and sometimes I don't. But the moments that have been hard, I am so grateful for them because I pray for God to come close to me. And in those moments of like hardship and turmoil, like I am leaning in so hard, like my life depends on it because it does. You know what I mean? And so sometimes, like, if life is going too well for too long,
Yeah,
like,
you
that's
know
when I start
something's
taking
wrong.
my control back and I'm living in self will and I will run myself into the ground. Like, I'm a person where, like, it takes 3 to 4 days max and I've burned everything to the ground, like, all of it. And so I was like, and if it doesn't work, I'm gonna try something else. I'm searching until I freaking find him because I know he's there. These people are not lying
Absolutely.
to me. These people cannot be bullshitting me. And so I just kept going. I kept going. I kept going. And like he just met me where I was at. And like
That's
that's why I was saying like the promises started coming true in my life.
yes.
And the first promise was as soon as I started working with my sponsor, almost instantaneously, my mental obsession was gone. And like I cannot tell you how bad I wanted to use when I was in that detox center. And within like 3 days of being in the real world, like gone. Completely gone.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
It is.
So like for me, I tell everybody because like if you're religious, that's that's their thing. But like I'm a very spiritual person now
Right.
because like I had some religious trauma growing
Right.
up, and so like I am spiritual but not religious. Like
Yeah.
I believe there's a God with everything in my soul, but like I feel like they say in the Bible that like any place you're at, if it's two or more people talking the word of God, that it's a church. And so like where I work in a recovery center, we're talking God every day. So
Right.
like to me, that's my church. I'm with the
Yes.
sinners. That I'm with the
Yes.
sinners and the outcasts that
Yes.
people don't want to help. And that's the way I look at my church. That's I look at this podcast. I mean, on the very first episode where I told my story, I was telling everybody this podcast is my church. Like
Right.
this is where I can get people to watch and try to find recovery for themselves. And your story is so inspirational because like you've you've been at the bottom of the barrel and you're succeeding right now. And uh, my thing I would always tell you is one step every day. Take that next right step.
Yeah.
Because sometimes life does get hard. I know I had some mess ups right at it. I almost messed up a little over a year with my self harm, but I got through it without doing nothing.
Right.
I didn't self harm, so of course I don't count it as nothing. But like there's still times those things are still there that'll bother you.
Right.
And it's like I tell everybody, our addiction, all of our addictions are outside doing push ups, just waiting.
Right.
But I see that you in the gym, so you're already trying to outwork
Every day. Not every day. I take a couple days off. But yeah, I saw this quote the other day and it said, sobriety isn't free. Rent's due every day. And I'm like, so I asked myself the question, like, how am I paying up today? Like, what am I putting into my recovery? Because there's a line in the big book that says it's easy to let up on our program of action and rest on our laurels. And I just took that as like, oh, whatever, you know? But the word laurel means a past achievement. So it's real easy for me today to depend on my sobriety that I did yesterday. Like, oh, I don't have to go to a meeting. I don't have to be of service. I did that
right.
yesterday. Well, no, I don't. It's a daily reprieve that I have that's contingent on my spiritual maintenance. And if I'm not hitting the ground every single morning, then I'm setting myself up for failure. And I'm all about setting myself up for success. I'll have my lunch packed when I get home from work for the next day. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
if I can set myself up for success to prevent harm in the future, I'm going to do it. And granted,
Absolutely.
the harm still comes, and most of the time I set the ball rolling just like always, but I try to put preventative measures in place to set myself up for success. And one of those is practicing my steps every single day, like not letting up, especially when it's hard. Like when I don't want to do it is when I need to do it the most. And I'll do it with tears streaming down my face. I don't care, but
Right.
I'm going to do it.
It's kind of like the days you don't want to go to a meeting. You know that's the day you got to put your butt in a seat
Right.
and get your butt over there.
Right.
You know.
Like I really didn't want to go last night and I showed up, there's no chairperson. So I was like, all right, let's have a meeting and open up the
Right.
binder.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like but I've been chairing since my second week. I chaired a meeting on Easter Sunday and I think I was like 2 weeks sober. But
Really.
yeah, I didn't tell them that because they wouldn't have let me, but I wanted
Right.
to
Right.
so bad. I wanted to. I was like, I'm chairing this meeting whether they like it or not, you know, and it was
That's
fabulous.
awesome
You know,
though.
I couldn't be with my family, I couldn't be with my loved ones that day, and like God gave me that opportunity, you know? And it's just crazy, like the little things that happen that like I look for now, because like I feel like blessings and good things are happening around me like all the time, but I have to look for them. Like that has to be my frame of mind, like because
Absolutely.
I'm a very much a confirmation bias person. If I think I'm the shittiest person on earth that day, then I'm going to look for everything that confirms that. But if I'm looking for God is bigger, God's got me, God's going to carry me through, like whatever's God's will, like those are the things I'm looking for in the day.
Absolutely. Like, you know, when I was watching some of your TikToks, I saw that that part of your story, where you was like, I did not start recovery to try to find God. God found me. And I
No.
was like,
Yeah.
that's how it usually happens though, because like when I went to the program the second time I had to go back, it's like somehow I had a gospel singer as my roommate, and he's singing gospel songs that he wrote every day. And I'm just like, so then of course, the curiosity kicks in. And then by the time of my 30-day stay, he's baptizing me and like
Right.
saving my soul right there at the treatment
Yeah.
center. And it's like it feels like it's just been like full steam ahead since then. So like
Right.
I get it, like, and I think it's an important piece, because like we had actually yesterday, I was teaching about spirituality at the recovery place that I work at, Path Recovery, because they're our sponsor. so
Yeah.
so we was talking about spirituality because I've got two people that are having a really hard time with the spirituality aspect of their recovery, and they're still struggling. And so they asked me to teach something about it, and I was like, y'all, I was like, when you're learning the spirituality stuff, I was like, literally, you can look at the stars, nature, your favorite animal, like you can do anything when you're starting out. I was like, all we need is the door to crack, because if you get
Right.
the door to crack, God's gonna take care of the rest of it
Right.
anyway. We just gotta
Right.
get you to crack the door. And I was like, how can you not lay in the grass at night, look at the stars, and not think that's a spiritual experience anyway? I was like, that's like one of the most beautiful things to do.
Right.
And so like now we're trying to help them do that, like lay out at night and watch the stars and see if it gets them in some sort of feeling.
Yeah, I heard this analogy in a meeting the other day, from one of my real good friends at one of my home groups. I have a CA home group and an AA home group. But he said he was listening to some type of motivational speaker and they were talking about spirituality. And this guy was like real caught up on it, couldn't get it, couldn't get it. And so he took him out. They were somewhere like where there was a beach. And so he took him out there and he was like, okay, now stand in front of the waves and tell them to stop. Tell the waves to stop crashing against the shore. And he was like, well, I can't. He was like, well, try. And so he did. And so he's like, okay, that right there tells you there is some force outside of yourself that's making those waves crash. And what was really important for my sponsor, like I straight up told my sponsor in the beginning of the work, I don't want this to work. I want to use with everything in me right now. I do not want to be here sitting with you. I do not want to be talking to you. I don't want to do any of this because I know what this looks like. I don't want this to work. And I did exactly what she told me. I didn't want her to be right. I wanted to laugh in her face
Right.
and be like, "See, you're dumb. Like it didn't work."
Right.
But that's not what happened. And I'm so glad that like all she told me, all you have to do is be willing. You don't have to do any of this right now. You don't have to figure out any of it. You don't even have to pray if you don't want to. All you have to do is be willing to believe in something besides yourself, because at this
Yes.
point I'm so bent up and angry and like just, but really it's not even anger, I'm just hurt because there's like a little girl inside me that just like wants comfort and wants
That's
someone to
right.
listen
That's
to
that
her
inner
and
child
wants
work.
a freaking hug, and like that's all it ever boils down to with me is like I just want someone, I just want to feel heard, that's it.
Now, through your recovery, have you done like any mental health treatments with your?
Yes.
So, have you worked on the inner child, the little girl?
Yeah, so I've been working on that on and off, and I think it's like really heightened obviously by my addiction because I just put depressant on top of depressant on top of depressant. But really the steps have healed a lot of that. And I'm also a borderline. So it's really funny because my sponsor goes to a borderline health clinic, and it's a doctor who runs it, and she has borderline herself. And there's like master's students that work under her, like master's level grad students, and one of them is writing their entire thesis on how the 12 steps work for borderline patients, addict or not. And I think that's a huge part of my mental health journey right now is the
And,
spirituality,
and
honestly.
the weird thing about you saying that is, I have a friend who has BPD, also borderline,
Yeah.
and we didn't. I didn't realize that it can go into remission.
Yeah.
Hers has actually gone into remission. You know, she went to her doctor, and I guess where they tested her, they said it's actually in remission. It's one of the few mental health illnesses that can actually go into remission for a while. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it could still come back, but like whatever she's doing at the moment is actually working for her BPD. And
Yeah.
you know, I was amazed because that was just something else I learned. You know, I didn't
Yeah.
have no clue that could go in remission. So for you to
Yeah.
talk about the BPD part, that's actually really cool.
Yeah. So I don't believe I'm like all the way in remission yet because I still struggle, but that's where I'm not saying it's all that, but so it's a behavioral issue. It's not like a chemical imbalance. So it's not
Right.
like my bipolar where I can just take a medication and my levels are all good. Mine is very much circumstantial, or like yeah, circumstantial. So I try to put myself in the best possible environment. And sometimes it's really hard. I live in a sober living right now, and so there's stuff going on like all the time. And sometimes I get like really impatient and all kinds of stuff and like act out. But the more I've been working my program and like the routine is really important for me, the better it's gotten. Like things that when I first got here, I was probably like a week in, I literally had I went to IOP. This sober living I'm at offers IOP where they do CrossFit and the IOP piece.
Right.
And I went up to the office and I had just gotten a job like the day before and I was so proud of myself. Like we had just done our check-in. I was like riding a high. I was super proud of myself for getting a job in like 2 days. And so I go to the office and I'm like, "Hey, I can't go to orientation because I have a job." And in that moment I didn't realize what was happening. I wanted her to be proud of me because growing up it was like you got a 95, why didn't you get 100?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
we won the volleyball tournament, okay, well how many errors did you make? And I just felt like no one was ever proud of me, like no matter how hard I tried my best was never good enough. And so I still struggle with that as an adult. But it's gotten better, like the outside validation not needing as much. But being like a week sober, I literally had a meltdown in the parking lot for like 3 hours. I'm talking like screaming, crying, pulling my hair, like, and the people in the IOP are like chasing me around the parking lot. And the only thing I know for myself is like to remove myself from the situation. That's the only thing that works for me when I'm having like, that was like a complete crash out right there. And so they're like chasing me around the parking lot. I'm like screaming in their face, you know. And I've made amends for that since then. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not something I like actively or like calculate. I like calculate that and like go. That was not my intention to hurt them. Um, but something happened the other day. Like I went up to the office to talk to them, and I still had 2 days of my IOP left. And with my job right now, I work at a cancer surgery center, so it's not like I can just take off whenever I want, especially because we just had a girl leave and go to cook children, so we're like a person short. And so it's me and my boss. There's 12 hours to split up, and I'm trying to work my position, the front desk. She's trying to work the front desk in her position. So it's just a bunch of chaos.
That
Anyways,
sounds like recovery work. Sounds
yeah,
like working in
right?
recovery. You got to do everything.
Right. So I go up to the office and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have 2 days of IOP left that you need to finish." Because I had gone up there for a different situation, right? Because I had gotten myself into like a little bit of chaos, and so they were honestly, I'll just tell you what I did. There's this vape store by our house, and there's a dude up there, and he asked for my number and we started talking, and then I was unaware that there was another girl in the program that wanted his number and was not working out. So it created all this chaos, right? So then like there's 6 houses. All 6 houses are like banned from going to the vape store and blah blah blah. Like it was just this whole I called my sponsor and I was like bitching about us being banned from the vape store, and she was like, honestly, the sick part of me is like kind of impressed because how the fuck did you do that? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
So
it's
anyways,
like the more impressive part is how did you get 6 houses banned from a vape store?
yeah, like at least 70 women, right? So but
They're all
the
going up
sober
there to
living
see this
ban
one
does.
guy.
Yeah, yeah, who, oh my god, literally just played me in my face, but whatever. So um so I go up to the office and that's what they wanted to talk to me about. And so I'm just like kind of eating shit for a little bit. And then the conversation turns and they're like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, you have to finish these 2 days of IOP or you're going to be removed from the program."
Mm.
And I was like, "You know what? I'm extremely uncomfortable. I don't know how we got to this point in the conversation, but I need to call my sponsor." And she kept going and I was like, "I need to call my sponsor."
Right, you're saying
And
what you
she
need.
rolls her eyes at me. The director of the program rolls her eyes at me and she's like, "Go call your sponsor." And I said, "Did you just roll your eyes at me?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, you did. But anyways, this conversation's over. I'm gonna go call my sponsor now." And so she made amends to me for that and everything, and said that she had actually done it like another time later on in the week and had to make amends again. So I'm like, "See, okay, I'm not crazy. You were gaslighting me for a second, but it's okay." And so, but just to say that, like, me 3 months ago, I was screaming, crying,
Right.
raging in the parking lot. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to continue this conversation. I'm going to go make a phone call and we can revisit this at a later time because I feel myself getting worked up. And so, like, that's another God moment. Like, that's this program working in my life because me on my own, I'm having a 3 hour meltdown in the parking lot. Me with God, I'm just like, okay, no, we can continue this at a later time. And I
Kind of
leave,
use the
which
stop
granted, I
technique
cry
on that
later.
one.
I cry later, but
Yeah, that's kind of like the
I'm
stop
not like,
technique you did.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, it's I it's just been a really like incredible journey, honestly. And like my relationships with my family have never been better, like ever. My relationships with my parents are it's so amazing. And I have a new baby niece. She's like a month old and she's just the cutest little thing. And
Oh,
then my other niece, she's just like a little butterball. She's the best thing on earth. And I don't know, it's just like little by little, these things are happening in my life. And that's what motivates me to keep going. Cause like I said
right.
in that TikTok the other day, like I'm a very results person. If I'm not getting results, I'm not going to keep doing it. But I put in the time and effort, like, and I stopped comparing myself. That was a big thing too, because I wanted someone else's recovery, but like I'm never gonna have someone else's
No,
recovery because I'm Miranda. Like I'm not Mina, my sponsor. I'm not Meredith, my roommate. Blah blah blah. I'm Miranda, and that's it. You know. And I feel like so far, like God's given me like a beautiful, beautiful life, and like I have no plans to do anything other than what I'm doing right now, like at all.
that is awesome. See, I didn't even realize you were still in sober living. So when you told me you
Yeah.
was coming on a podcast, where they were like, "How did this happen?"
Yeah, they were like, "Dude, you're so cool," and I was like, "I know."
They're like, "Of course you got to be on the
Yeah.
podcast."
Honestly, I probably have the biggest personality in this house,
So they're like,
so
"Of course it had to be you."
yeah.
But I'm glad that you're and your family. Let's talk about that for a second, because like at one point they had kicked you out several times, correct?
Oh yeah.
And so like now y'all were like you repairing all that relationship.
Yeah.
That
So
is
the number one thing for me was I started working on this honestly a couple years ago, like and it was really hard. There was a lot of screaming matches and there was a lot of tears, but like forgiving my parents. I held things against them for so long, and that was my reason why to use and drink. Like, my parents don't love me, blah blah blah. They're not proud of me. Like, I'll never live up to my brothers. I'm always like the black sheep. I just had to let all of that go. And it sounds, I just wrote a poem about this the other day, actually. I wish I had it with me so I could read it, but I don't think I can close out of this and keep it going at the same time. But I'll send it to you. It's about how do you let go? Because people say let go like all the time. How do you do that? It's like, instead of choking, I'm gasping for air. You know what I mean? And taking that as progress and like using that to go forward. Because it's not like I'm angry and I hate these people and I'm gonna like pray about it and then wake up better the next day. No, it comes with a lot of also accountability, like taking accountability for my own harm that I caused myself. Like, yes, I may have had like emotionally absent parents, like what I consider, but you know what? Like, my mom came from an extremely broken household, like broken. The only thing she ever wanted was a family, and she loved us so hard, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think a lot of it was having like untreated mental health. Um because that's what I did for a long time, was self-medicate. That's all I was doing. Like I said, I didn't party, I didn't socialize. It was in my room with the lights off by myself as much as possible, as quick as possible, and that was it. That was my entire addiction, in a closet basically. And just talking to them and making amends to them, you know, for like fucking traumatizing them. Like, my dad would tell me like, I hate when my phone rings. Like, to this day, I hate when my phone rings because I just think it's that phone call.
Right.
And I'm like, or being ashamed of me, like when people are like, "Oh, how's Miranda doing?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just forgiving them for all the things that I held against them for so long, and for treating them like absolute garbage. Because I honestly, I shared this in a meeting the other day. I didn't think my parents loved me until my addiction. Like, whenever they were really just enabling me. But and I carried that over into relationships too. Like, how far can I push this person until they leave? And can I get them to come back?
Right.
Um, because to me that was love. If I can completely destroy you and break you down and you stick around, then you love me. Or just like the fucked up mentality I had, but also making time for them, not calling them being like, hey, can I have this, or I need this, blah blah blah, but
Right.
showing up for my parents. What can I do for you? You know, like, I got to plan Mother's Day and Father's Day this year. That was awesome. And just spending time with them, because at the end of the day, that's all they want. And honestly, that's all I want too now, is to just be around them. I'm not, whenever I'm around them, I'm spending quality time with them. My nose isn't in my phone. I'm not trying to figure out how I can sneak out the back door and use and come back in. Like, I'm just present with them and showing them gratitude, because whenever I'm down and I'm like really like struggling, the best thing for me is creating a gratitude list, because then I'm like, whoa, we are really arrogant and ungrateful. We are
Yes.
really arrogant and ungrateful right now.
I've made my people do that before too, because like, they'll be down and out. They'll be like, "Oh, I can't believe I yelled at a housemate the other day." And I'm like, "Okay, all right, let's talk about what we did good. Let's talk
Right.
about the other things." I said, "Did you get up this morning? Did you make your bed?" I was like, "Start writing." Did you
Right.
brush your teeth? Like, come on,
Right.
keep writing. Did you eat
Right.
breakfast? Like, and I'm like, "Look, you got 20 good things to the one bad thing.
Right.
Why you laying in the bad? Like, lean into the good."
Exactly.
Then
Because like the program says, it's progress, not perfection.
right.
I That's what I've struggled with in the past. Like, I expected perfection from the very beginning. And I didn't put any work in because I wasn't getting perfection. You know what I mean? And so just allowing myself to make mistakes and practicing humility and going back and cleaning up those mistakes if I caused any harm. Because sometimes really in the moment it's probably not the best motivator, but I'm like, do I want to make amends to this person? No, I don't. So I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. You know, and if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes.
Well,
But
it's like you can be selfish. Like, you're allowed to be selfish in your recovery. Like, you
right,
can you can decide who you got to keep out of your life for right now until you get into a better place, and you can decide who needs to be in your life, because if they were there in the worst of moments and they stuck by you, then in the best of moments they're going to stick by you. Like your parents, for
exactly.
example.
Yeah,
Do you have a routine that you do every day? Because I'm a routine person as far as my
I do.
recovery.
I do. So I'm either up anywhere between 4 and 5 in the morning. I go to the gym Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes Saturday. But the first thing I do, like I said, I wake up, my knees hit the ground, and sometimes I'm in a fog. So like even just the action of hitting my knees, it reminds me that like this is not my day. This is God's day. And like the program says, my whole purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. And so like that's what I'm doing from the second I wake up. I go downstairs, get some coffee, read my meditation for the morning. I do a routine or like a collection of different things. Sometimes I read the daily reflection, sometimes I'll read a devotional. I always go to the Everything AA app and I'll pick a couple of prayers to read, and then I'll meditate from anywhere to 20 to 30 minutes. Like sometimes I have like tribal music on, singing bowls.
Yes.
I'm not a guided meditation person. I get distracted. But I'll put on some sort of like zen music, just real light, and I'll just listen to that for like 20, 30 minutes. And then I go to the gym. I'll either get ready at the gym or come home and get ready. I go to work. I work 8:30 to 5. This week I've been working anywhere from 5:30 to 6 to 5 because we just had a weird week. But yeah, I go to work, I come home, I go to a meeting or an H&I, and then I come home, take my medicine, and go to bed. Like I keep it real simple, real simple. I don't have room for anything else either. Like I don't have time to entertain outside of my program right now. And also I don't have the yes, I have a foundation. I feel solid right now, but I'm not trying to bring in other people or like look for a relationship or
Right,
like,
right.
I'm just uninterested in it because like I hate to sound like a big book thumper, but like I'm the only addiction I have right now is like self-improvement and betterment of myself. And I'm available for sponsorship now, and I am like really excited about that. I know it'll happen in God's timing, but I just keep it real simple.
So you're not sponsoring nobody just yet, then, right?
No, I just got on step 12 yesterday.
That's that's fire
Yeah,
right
I'm
there.
so excited.
I got one sponsee. Like I talked to a whole bunch of people, but I've got one official sponsee, and he just hit
Mhm.
a year like last month, and
Oh, that's awesome.
that was like
That's
the
awesome.
greatest feeling I've ever had. Like I
Oh,
was
I
more
bet.
happier that he hit a year than I hit 2 years.
Right.
We're like a week apart in our years, so like
That is so
he hit
awesome.
his and then I hit mine, and I swear I think I was happier. It was more like a dad feeling that I got somebody
Yeah.
to a year,
That's awesome.
and I talk to him every day. Like, you'll hear some people says, you're supposed to sponsor and you're not supposed to be friends and you're just supposed to blah 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 blah. And I have my boss, Tyler. He taught me different. He was like, when you are a sponsor, you're supposed to like have a deep relationship with these people and get
Right.
to know them and stuff. He said, so who gives a shit when people say you're supposed to be a hard ass on your sponsees? He's like, no, love on them,
Right.
let them love on you, and let them become family. He's like, and he also said he don't believe in that shit that if you get too close, you gotta separate. He's like, no, that's a relationship you're supposed to
Right.
have with that person. So like, I'm blessed to have the one sponsee, and my sponsor, I've had him since I got out. Well, I had somebody else for the first 6 months, and then he transferred jobs, and then he picked up right where he left off. And I mean, he's like my big brother at this point.
That's
Even though
awesome.
I think he might be older than me, but I'm not sure. But he's like my big brother. So like, we do stuff all the time. Like we have our alumni meeting because we both went to the ranch in Dixon to get better, and so
I've
like we
heard
have a
about
lot.
that place.
Yeah, it's that's where I went, and it's also where I worked at. You know, and see where you did a 12-step place that you called it was like 12-step book all the time. We
Yep.
had the art therapy, the equine therapy. Equine therapy was probably some of the most fun therapy I ever had. I didn't realize when I went to the ranch that like horses react closest to humans than
Yeah.
anything. So if you're nervous or scared or depressed, you can tell by their ears because they feel your energy.
Yeah.
So like you have to do this whole Zen process before you go into the horse stable if you want the horses to, hang out with you and stuff. So like for me, that was like that would let me know if I was kidding myself or not. So if I
Right.
walked in and the horse's ears went straight forward, I was like, you're joking yourself today. Like let's take a step back and like get this right, you know.
Yeah.
And so like for us, that's what we do all the time, you know. Like how you say, I have a routine also, and I try to teach that to everybody because you know you had a routine to drink, you had a routine to do your drugs,
Right.
you know, you had your routine to steal, do whatever you had to do to get
Exactly.
your money, lie, steal, cheat, you know. And I was
Yep.
like, you had a routine to do that. Let's have a routine in recovery because the less time you give yourself to think outside the box, especially for the first year, the better you are. And that
Exactly.
was words from my sponsor. I have to prop him up for that one because he told me first year it's nothing but recovery, and you know
Yeah.
you eat, breathe, sleep, recovery. You know, because it takes you a good year to like get that foundation and everything under your footing well. So like when you said you wasn't dealing with no relationships right now, on
At
the
all.
inside, I high five myself on the inside because I was like, because that's some of the biggest mistakes we make in recovery. Like you'll start going to a meeting, it'll be a co-ed meeting, and there'll be somebody in the room, and you'll be like, I'll just be friends with them, and then all of a sudden you see them both fall off the wagon together, you know,
Yep.
and it's like they'll both fall off the wagon because they'll take one of them will take the other one down because the
Yep.
relationship becomes toxic and they both go down.
There's a girl in our house that I'm trying to teach that to right now. But I don't know. I mean, the only thing I have to share is my experience, strength, and hope. I'm not talking about anything that I don't have experience, strength, and hope around. And relationships, like I said, have been a huge issue for me in the past. Like from man to man to man, or just sleeping with people in exchange for love. Because I was like, if I give them this, they will love me in return.
Right.
And it really damaged me as a person. I mean, it brought me all the way to my knees. Like I had never hit my knees until that relationship with that guy ended, and I cried out. I was like, God, this is so painful. I physically cannot stand the pain I'm in right now, and I don't know what to do. And like it's brought me like it's lowered my self-esteem to like the most devastating lows. It's hurt my confidence. Like I have no boundaries, just a people pleaser. And I promised myself after the end of that relationship, like I will never be treated like that again. I don't care who it
Absolutely.
is. And I learned to have a voice for myself. Like I used to be very meek and shy and quiet, or I would just internalize everything and like build these invisible resentments. But I now know like how to communicate, like, hey, I didn't like the way you did that, or I didn't like the way, or ask clarifying questions. You know what I mean? Because I can either leave the room and think about this for the next 3 weeks, or I can ask a couple questions and ask this person what they really meant by that. And in doing that, it's built my self-esteem so much. And like esteemable acts, like being of service, doing like healthy things for myself to build me from the inside out. Because I am still working on that. Like just a couple years ago, like I was a mess. Everything inside was just like complete turmoil and chaos. Like, and I've never truly just been satisfied with myself. I couldn't sit alone with myself, much less think that I have anything to offer another human being at all.
Right.
And just doing those next right things, as we call them, like it builds my self-esteem so much. And making doing things for other people, like other people's happiness brings me happiness.
Absolutely.
And it's just like the littlest things, and doing things and not saying anything about it at all, just doing it and
Yeah.
letting it
Yeah.
happen, not
Like
taking
doing
credit
service
for
work
it.
without even telling nobody. Like
Exactly,
just
not taking
doing
credit for
something
stuff, just
nice.
doing it because I want to.
Yeah.
And
Not having your phone up like this, going, let me
right,
holding your
right,
hand out like you're doing something. You know, like to me that's not service work. To me, you're just trying to get high fives and handshakes when you do
exactly,
that. So like yeah, the behind the scenes service works where it's at. Um,
exactly.
as we come toward the end of our show, I got to ask you a question. You know, because you were young when you got into your addiction. So let's talk to the young teenage girl that's going through it, the toxic relationships, the daddy issues like you had before you repaired your relationship with your dad. You know, the girl that's just going through it that's in high school. Let's say she's in high
Yeah.
school, going to college. You know, what's the one thing you if you could tell her something to help her change or to be like, you know what, I think I might need some help. What's the one thing you would tell them?
To lean into the fear and not run from it. I ran from a lot of fears I had, and That's what I did for a long time. I had the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of not being pretty enough, the fear of not being whatever enough, never enough, you know? But to lean into that fear and like sit with it and
Yes.
produce those things in myself. I searched and I've also had a history of eating disorder. I was bulimic for like 4 years, every single day, multiple times a day. You know, any affliction, men, food, like alcohol, drugs, like I was searching for any and everything but God, to just sit with myself and figure that shit out instead of trying to figure it out in the world.
You know, if you ever decide to start you a podcast, will you have me on? Because like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like, like we'll have to like keep talking after the show's over with, and like
Yeah,
just like keep up with each other's recovery. And
of
as soon as we
course.
get
I
done
would
with the
love
show,
that.
I'll share my socials with you so you can
Yeah, I
join
would
me.
love that.
We come to the end of our show. Miranda, thank you for coming on. Like, God bless you for everything you're going through and everything you're doing today. Like, we're so proud of you. Keep doing the next right thing. If anybody out there is looking for help, or you got a family member that's struggling, say you got a teenage daughter that's just going through it and you don't know what to do, reach out to us. Go to our website, morningjuicepod.com. There's a little questionnaire at the bottom. All you got to do is leave your name and your email address, and it shoots me an email, and I'll call you back. You know, go to our website. Go to our YouTube channel, Morning Juice Pod. Our Instagram is at Morning Juice Pod. Thank y'all for being with us tonight, and we will see y'all next week. Bye.